topic is the coming battle between UPS and Amazon. My guest is Rick Watson. He is CEO and co-founder of RMW Commerce Consulting. Hi, Rick.
How's it going, Robert? Great to meet
Good.
you.
Yeah, good to meet you too. Thanks for taking the time with me. So I take it you do see this. You see a coming battle between UPS and Amazon. What will that entail? What will it look like?
Yeah, I think it's not just a coming battle. I think the battle is here, and most, anyone who doesn't see it coming probably just isn't paying close enough attention. I think Fred Smith at FedEx, for instance, 2 years ago was famous for saying Amazon is not a competitor, not that big a deal. And look what happened there. I mean, Amazon has
cut them out, really, didn't they?
Yeah, they cut them out because they know that they were going to be a competition. And I think Amazon has been slowly, over the past 5 years, going from handling 30% of their own parcels to something like 60, 70% of their own parcels now. Mm-hmm. And I think it's inevitable that these companies will compete head to head, including in the North American market.
Amazon has never been afraid to spend money. And even on physical infrastructure, which might have been counterintuitive to people thinking about, the way that business is going to shape up in years to come. So what kind of investments is Amazon making to this end to become a bigger force in the actual physical delivery end of this e-commerce service?
Wow, it is eye-popping and staggering are the words that I would use. Just in the past year, Amazon across the world invested $40 billion in capital expenditures to power their business. Wow. Just to give you a sense, UPS last year invested about $4 billion in capital expenditures. And that's usually R&D, like big new projects and ideas, infrastructure, things that you can capitalize as an investor. About half of that $40 billion, Amazon earmarked, over half actually, for logistics, just logistics. That means that the size of Amazon's investments in 1 year was bigger than UPS's investments over the past 5 or 6 years. Wow. Just that stat by itself makes you pause and wonder, for me, it was a little bit of a watershed moment. It's like, what's happening here? And I think if you look across the areas, robotics, Amazon has its own robotics institute in Massachusetts. They've hired some of the top roboticists in the world and have bought multiple companies related to this. They have some of the most automated warehouse centers in the world, and hundreds of them. They have an extremely robust middle mile network connecting all these warehouses. They have it over 100,000 franchise drivers in the last mile, actually bringing packages, not just bringing packages to the post office, bringing packages literally to consumer doors, particularly on routes where they're not rural and way out, that probably unprofitable. In the UK, they have started their own independent, what we call third-party shipping service, which is similar to what they had piloted in the US and California about 2 years ago before COVID. And so as a business, you can sign up for Amazon as a carrier.
Kind of like you can sign up for Amazon fulfillment services. It's the same basic philosophy, right?
That's right.
Yeah.
That's right.
Yeah. How interesting. And of course, they've chartered planes in the past too, and there's been talk about being their own forwarder. You say that they were piloting that venture in California before the pandemic hit. Is that coming back in the United States, or are they experimenting with it offshore first, or what exactly is the deal there?
Yeah, it's a good question. I think, look, the pandemic changed everything. Even for a company like Amazon, they had to scramble, not only because of, the peaks, the highest peaks hit the largest volume companies more precipitously than any other company on the planet. So if you can imagine what every other shipper went through during Q4 last year or in April of last year, particularly for consumables, paper goods, Amazon hit that, and Walmart hit that 2 to 5 times X someone else. And
Mhm.
so they basically had to they threw everything off the bus and saying, we need to respond to this. They kicked all third-party goods out of their warehouses last year that weren't essentials. And so as a result,
Yeah.
they stopped a number of prototypes that they were working on and piloting.
I see.
And the year before, they had started piloting, and during COVID, they actually sort of formally announced it again, that they were piloting a third-party shipping service in the UK. It's obviously a very dense market, very connected. It's easier to serve than North America. But I think I can't think of a single part of their Amazon network that was not built with becoming a big third-party provider in mind.
Yeah, that's what they've been doing. Of course, they have two advantages over UPS. One is that they have a cash cow called Amazon Web Services,
Right.
and two is that their drivers aren't union, right?
Right.
So
That's right.
it's hard to see. Can you envision a future? I mean, what would be the future of UPS in this scenario? 1/10 the investment, natural disadvantages. They could get cut out in the same way that FedEx got cut out if Amazon gets big enough. What should UPS be doing? Are they just complacent sitting around, or are they making some plans to survive themselves?
Look, I think they're investing. I would never call UPS complacent. I think by far they have one of the best ground networks in the US,
Wow.
bar none, historically and now. I think they're investing aggressively to improve that service. I think the problem with competing against someone like Amazon is that they aren't just another carrier. They also control the customer relationship and their own volume. And so they have vertically integrated the entire chain, which means that UPS can't get new parcels from Amazon, but Amazon can get new parcels from UPS. So that creates a very one-sided relationship. Now we could talk about antitrust and all these other things, and maybe the government won't allow this to happen.
Maybe it'll come to that.
I think Amazon needs a competitor in the supply chain market if they're going to stay under antitrust radar for the, it's my personal feeling.
Yeah, yeah. Well, I mean, we've been talking about a lot. We've kind of been in the weeds a little bit in this discussion up to this point, but what might be the ultimate impact on the consumer? A stronger Amazon, a bigger presence on the street with the trucks and everything. Will consumers benefit or not benefit? What might be their impact there?
I think historically Amazon has been shown to be a huge force for consumer good in terms of efficiency and convenience and generally pricing. I would say Amazon has driven e-commerce to be one of the most convenient mediums we've seen in our lifetimes. And no one else was investing at their levels, and no one else had the vision of getting everything to your house in an hour. It just didn't exist. Like literally, they were the ones who invented that business. And so I think generally it's good for the consumer, and that's why they're so different than every other company, in that most of these companies are beholden to their shareholders, they're beholden to dividends, they're beholden to the unions, and that can often be at odds with what's truly best for the customer.
Good for the consumer, unless they become such a monopoly and get such control of the marketplace that they have control over pricing. And that the relatively low pricing, the fact that they're eating the cost of at least a percentage of their delivery cost right now, maybe they don't want to do that in the future. Maybe they want to triple or quadruple the price of, and forget about free shipping, and consumers won't be able to do anything about it. Might that happen?
I think, yes, it might happen. I think if it were so, even now, there's such an undercurrent of pressure starting to build against Amazon as a monopolist, and the forces are between the two views of monopoly. The monopoly is a view that it has to have a consumer harm for it to be considered a monopoly, or is a monopoly, just in the Brandesian view, essentially is like, can it be a monopoly just because it's too big percentage of the market?
Right.
And both have been ascended and descended at different times in our nation's history. But more recently, in the last 15 years, it has been more the former, which is you would have to prove some kind of consumer harm, which means they're trying to take advantage of the consumer.
Mhm.
That might change, but I think there are a lot of structural forces against Amazon just trying to raise prices, least of all which is their corporate philosophy, which they kind of learned at the foot of Walmart. Like, there are types of companies that our goals are to keep expanding margin indefinitely and raising prices. And there are types of companies that are built on how can we become more efficient and operate on lower margins to get more share
Yeah.
and benefit our consumers. And Amazon's generally the second type of company.
Mhm. Despite the fact that it has no close competition. Well, I wouldn't say that if you do have Walmart and Target and Costco and the like, but at least on the pure e-tailing side, they seem to pretty much own the game these days. So I don't know. Well, that's a very interesting perception there, Rick, about the growing the ascendancy of Amazon. I don't know what that's going to mean for UPS and FedEx in the long run, but thank you for painting the picture for us so we can see how this battle is actually raging right now, even as we speak. Thank you very much for being with me to talk about it. We appreciate it.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on, Robert.
Thanks.